Hi, welcome to our state and local government summit. We are discussing today demystifying the government cloud, and we have a great panel for our discussion today. My name is Ed Blake. I've been facilitating all of these sessions. I'm a managing consultant with Catapult Systems. I've been with Catapult for 12 years, and again, we have a great panel to discuss the subject today, demystifying the government cloud. I'm going to have them introduce themselves before we jump into the agenda. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, Edwin. Yeah, my name is Daniel Pascal. I'm also a managing consultant here at Catapult. I've been with Catapult for going on 9 years and currently am operating as the practice manager for the data and AI practice, working with Mr. Stewart here. Tom?
Tom Stewart. I am also a managing consultant. Have been around Catapult for many, many years. Have a broad background in government and commercial work, and focus on data engineering primarily now. But whatever comes along, I get assigned usually.
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, a look at our agenda. I'm not going to dwell terribly long on this because it should be fairly self-explanatory. We're looking at everything from what is the cloud all the way through to making a decision. We have a couple of graphics which will help us along the way in our journey through the process here. But I'm just going to jump right in, have a start, hand it back to you, gentlemen. And here we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Edwin. Yeah, this is a not a subject that we need to take a ton of time on, but it is a subject that's very important to our clients. Often a conversation that we have as we're initially getting engaged, and it's a decision that has some lasting ramifications. So it's an important decision to make and to kind of fully understand. So we have worked with many clients and helping kind of determine, where is the best place for a, data solution to live, gov cloud, commercial cloud, based on their situation and their use case. The government cloud has been maturing over the years and becoming more and more viable as a platform for a lot of our clients, but there are really specific reasons to go to the government cloud and really good reasons to stay in commercial, even if you're state and local government. So we want to go through those. Some initial, I guess, differentiators between when you might use the government cloud and when you might use commercial cloud. We've got those up in our visual here, just kind of going through those at a high level. Operational staff. So, if you are using the commercial cloud, there is a screening process for the staff that is maintaining that commercial cloud. But it is that staff could be anywhere around the world, and is as it relates to the government cloud. It's going to be a U.S.-based staff going through a similar screening process. You can see on this chart there are differences in the level of well, actually there's not in physical security. They're the same, but it's that same kind of high level of security that Azure is known for, crossing both the commercial and government cloud. Each cloud has its own portal, own distinct URL. So you would want to go ahead and look that up. We didn't add it here because it's not a interactive type of session, but those URLs are out there. They're certainly distinct. You've got all the features in the Azure Commercial Cloud. The Gov Cloud lags behind the Azure Commercial Cloud as it relates to features. So that is something we're always monitoring with our clients, seeing when new features are going to be available in the Gov Cloud, and that can help drive decisions. Pricing concerns, Gov Cloud, there is a premium cost for using Gov Cloud. So as you're talking with your Microsoft AE and working through pricing, that is something to take into consideration. There is a little extra cost there. And then availability, anyone can use a commercial cloud. Gov Cloud is you need to be working with your Microsoft representative and really determining whether or not GovCloud is the right answer. And Microsoft ultimately has to make the decision as to whether or not you can use GovCloud. That being said, there are a lot of kind of triggers or reasons that would put you in the GovCloud that we'll go over here. Anything else, Tom?
No, I think the primary thing is to recognize that in GovCloud, anybody within the Azure and Microsoft organization that works with your data or with your applications is a U.S. citizen. They've been screened by the government. They're people that for government purposes meet all the requirements from a security standpoint. The other part of this, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not, Danny, is that the GovCloud is a separate physical infrastructure. The computers, the hardware is literally in a different data center for the regions supported by the government cloud. So those two things, those are important to your organization. Those are two big triggers for going to GovCloud.
And you could probably answer this better than I, Tom, but the difference in identity, single sign-on from the two environments, I know there's some more limitations on the Gov side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at the compliance here and all the many standards, but it is important to recognize that while you can integrate your or sync your Active Directory to GovCloud, you cannot do sign-ons or sync across commercial and government. So if you sign into GovCloud, that's where you live. If you had a commercial cloud tenant as well, for some reason, you can't share identities. You can't log in on one and directly access the other. That's basic security, right? If you belong in GovCloud, you don't belong in commercial, and vice versa. So that's something that sometimes surprises people. The synchronization may or may not be an issue for you, but something to think about. We've got a long list of standards here that Danny, I think, has looked at most of these. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key, drivers that could push you into the government cloud is regulatory compliance. And we have a lot of clients we work with who, this is one of the key drivers of why they go to GovCloud. We've worked with multiple public safety departments, PDs out there, different states, different cities, and all of them, look at CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Services, as the regulatory compliance that they are, most concerned with complying with. That kind of CJIS requirement for public safety departments almost always puts them in the GovCloud. This list is because you are dealing with some maybe IRS or ITAR or CJIS requirements. It's not a full-blown conclusion that you go to GovCloud. This list here is just when CJIS comes up, IRS, ITAR, HIPAA, these are things that should kind of trigger further exploration in seeing if GovCloud's going to be the right choice. It's not quite as black and white as if you see this, they go to GovCloud, but this is a good starting point if you're working with any of these, having to, comply with any of these regulatory services out there, then that should start a real good, thorough discussion around GovCloud and if it's going to be the right solution.
Yeah, it's worth, Denny, it's worth pointing out though that Azure Commercial Cloud complies with a lot of these standards out of the box, right? Things like 40, the NIST standards, even FedRAMP High is you can qualify FedRAMP High on the commercial cloud, and that's great because what it means is there's more symmetry between the two products. So Azure GovCloud is really the same. You don't have to have different documentation, different developers, different processes. But the criminal justice, the IRS, if you're dealing and you're interchanging data with federal agencies, that's sort of going to be the thing that tips you over, I think, when you're looking at a set of standards. It's also worth noting that there's plenty of documentation on the Microsoft Cloud around how you would deal with audits if you're needing to meet FedRAMP. Those steps involved in the Azure side of your world, those are documented early, so you don't have to do as much research. it's available to you.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And it's, worth noting on here, public safety and justice, health, human services, tax and finance, at a really high level. When you're dealing with those particular departments or services, that should open the discussion for GovCloud versus commercial. But GovCloud should be in consideration, I think, if you're working in any of those spaces.
Right.
All right. How about a little Azure audience and experience? Tom, why don't you take this one, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. We're trying to describe the level of security here, basically the level of containment, the level of compartmentalization. There's typically 5 audiences that deal with cloud-related applications. Department of Defense and the intelligence community; those guys deal top secret data. Those guys obviously belong in GovCloud, and they, on top of that, belong in segmented areas that really truly deal with the security clearances involved. Federal civilian agencies, that audience, whether it's the VA or USDA or any of the other agencies that don't necessarily directly deal with criminal justice or with Homeland Security or with Department of Defense, they'd probably live in government. They might have some aspects that live in secret as well. There are obviously things that go on in the logistics, in transportation, the FAA, where they have some things they don't want to express, and so some of their data might live in the secret tier. State and local government typically would live just in Azure government. If you're a justice agency or a law enforcement agency or something similar, yeah, you might deal with the FBI or NCIS or any of the Department of Defense law enforcement agencies. And so some of your data might need to qualify for that secret tier, but less likely. State and local government often can fall strictly into the commercial thing. If you're talking about I don't know, park reservations or access to museums, those kinds of things, data about what's in the public libraries in the state systems, those could easily live just in commercial. And of course, commercial agencies, commercial entities, third-party providers of applications, people like Quisitive and Catapult, people that just have relationships with government. Maybe they sell baby food or something to the government. They certainly can live in Azure commercial completely, but they may, for contractual reasons, want to live in Azure government. Those tenants, we talked earlier about identities don't straddle between commercial and GovCloud, so you'd have to take those things into account. But yeah, audiences based on security requirements primarily, and like we talked about earlier, those physical presence of those are U.S. citizens that are administering those machines in the back office. If they're installing new hardware, yeah, it's a U.S. citizen when you're in GovCloud. If it's a commercial, it could be anybody around the world. That's of course pretty good because that means they're up in their time zone and they're going to be wide awake when they talk to you. So anyway, the audiences and the experiences in Azure Cloud.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting, on this list, it's state and local government where we have the most detailed conversations around this. It's pretty clear if you're Fed, DoD, where your stuff belongs. But state and local government, like you mentioned, Tom, a lot of use cases, a lot of data doesn't need the GovCloud treatment. And you as a data practice within state and local government, or a business owner who needs a lot of reporting, you might want that in commercial, so you have the full feature set, to do more with that data. And so, and then also within state and local government, within the architecture that you build out, private link can be set up that will, help secure any public IP endpoints within your architecture. So there's things you can do to really secure your architecture in commercial and make it a viable, secure place for you to build your state and local government data solutions. And we've got a lot of clients, they err once we talk through this, they tend to err on the side of commercial where they can get away with it because you get that richer feature set.
Yeah, the other thing maybe to think about too when you're trying to make that decision is just the bulk of your work. If you deal primarily from a contractual standpoint with other commercial entities, it maybe makes sense to live in commercial and then make the leap to GovCloud when you're delivering things to the state government or to local government. Each situation you really need to think about what your staffing is, what's your the bulk of your business, where your business lies, and then comply with all the regulatory oversight that you need to for your situation.
Yeah, so kind of take us through a summary here, Tom. How
Yep.
you're sitting in state local government?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're posed with this challenge. How are you making this decision?
Yeah, we've said it over and over. If you have law enforcement, Homeland Security, Department of Defense, IRS to some degree, if your business deals with those audiences, those constituencies, then you're going to go GovCloud. It makes total sense. Could you do it in commercial? Yes, but you'd have to jump through all kinds of hoops. So just make that leap. Go GovCloud. Build those relationships, build those private endpoints. If you're having to deliver data or equipment or whatever to the Department of Defense, and that needs to have some secret layer on top of it, you can do that when you're in GovCloud. You cannot do that from commercial. So that's the first thing. Second thing is if for some reason, whether it's your investors, your board of directors says they want to make a commitment to a U.S. citizen only kind of environment, GovCloud as well. Like we said, the people that work at Microsoft, that work behind the scenes in the data centers, whether they're Microsoft employees or subcontractors, they've all been vetted. They're all U.S. citizens. They've all had background checks. You can have that faith that that's happening. That's not to say that Microsoft doesn't do a great job in the commercial cloud at vetting its employees and its subcontractors. Some organizations, though, you want to make that step, and that's great. If you say U.S. citizen, go GovCloud. The third part that we haven't sort of talked about here as much is literally feature set. It was mentioned in that first table we looked at. GovCloud lags. The feature set in GovCloud lags the commercial cloud. Things are built in commercial cloud. They're tested there. They're vetted there. They're run for a while, and then they move over to GovCloud. And the reason for that asymmetry is because of the certification process. Before a piece of code runs in GovCloud, it has to be evaluated by those people at Microsoft that work with the government, that handle the audits on the back end, that make sure that every piece of GovCloud software you run complies with all those standards properly. So that lag then means that if you're reading documentation or you're looking at some feature of Synapse or Databricks or Azure Data Factory or whatever tool you're looking at, that feature that's in commercial, it may not be ready yet in GovCloud. It's pretty common to go, oh darn, I'm missing that one little piece. I have to do it the old way, and that's perfectly okay. Government logistics, government contracts, government process, the timelines often are slower anyway because of all that oversight in the government. So it generally doesn't make a huge impact on you, but it is something to think about. If you're thinking about doing the latest and greatest work with Databricks or Synapse, yeah, you're going to have to think about that and make that adjustment.
Especially right if you're in state and local government, right? We're kind of
yes,
where you have the option of going commercial or government in a lot of cases. It's I would challenge anyone in state and local government to find a reason not to go commercial, because commercial should be your baseline.
Absolutely. The other thing we didn't mention in the earlier parts, tribal agencies. The United States has got a large number of Native American tribes, whether they're pueblos or reservations or whatever. The Navajo, of course, 350,000 citizens. They have a great number of tribal agencies that have to make the same decisions. Are they going to live in commercial cloud because all they're dealing with is maybe historical artifacts? Or they're a law enforcement agency, or they work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, right, which is a federal agency, part of the VA, the Veterans Administration. And as a result, by extension, that means that you are associated with TRICARE, and that means you're associated with the Department of Defense. And so that cascading list of things. So if you're a tribe, if you have any dealings with a federal agency in what you're trying to accomplish, you'd want to go GovCloud.
Yeah. And one thing there, just as a reminder, this is something that you need to be engaged with your Microsoft representative on, because Microsoft ultimately approves who does and doesn't go in the GovCloud.
Right.
So, what we'd like to do is kind of prime you with just kind of understanding the use cases for going to one versus the other, but it should be a collaborative conversation with your Microsoft representative.
Yeah, you definitely want to do this ahead. You want to make these decisions before you start building things. Moving back and forth between GovCloud and commercial, it's a little bit of a challenge, and so make good decisions. Plenty of documentation available, and like Danny says, reach out to Microsoft or to your Microsoft partner, and by extension, they'll talk to Microsoft for you. Take those things into consideration. We generally, I think Danny and I and Ed, we generally think about state and local government as being bigger agencies, metropolitan areas, the city of Houston or the city of Dallas or whatever, or Denver. But there are a lot of smaller communities now that are getting on the cloud, that are taking advantage of Azure, and they may not have the staff or the skill sets to make these evaluations. So if you're a small agency or a rural community thinking about this, or a rural county, reach out to folks, make sure that you do the legwork, and make good decisions, because you want to make sure you don't paint yourself into a corner from a budgetary standpoint. Maybe GovCloud is the right thing, but you have to hire skill set to do the work. You may not have that budget available, so you want to take those things into account as well when you're deciding what to do.
All right.
Anything else, Danny? I mean, I think that's
no. I think that's good. Edwin, back to you.
Thanks, Jens. That was a great session. Thanks so much. Lots of great information there. So for anybody listening, watching, thanks very much for attending. Really appreciate your time. I hope it was informative, and it gave you whetted appetites for more information, which if you do wish to have that, we have a couple of QR codes here. We're going to close on those. If you want to connect with our experts, get more information, delve deeper into the cloud, we can certainly help with that. We have a 3-question survey. We appreciate your feedback. If you can give us any feedback, positive or negative, and anything you feel you would need to know differently, presented differently, or any tweaks that you'd recommend for our sessions, we're more than happy to hear that from our attendees. Again, I hope this was helpful. There was a lot of great information there. I really appreciate you guys' time. Thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.